In a small apartment in Volgograd, Russia, 10-year-old Dmitry Volkov sat at his family's kitchen table on a gray March afternoon in 2019, his pencil moving across paper with unusual certainty. His mother, Irina, watched from the doorway as her son sketched something she couldn't immediately identify. Lines intersecting at precise angles, borders forming shapes she vaguely recognized. Then it became clear. He was drawing a map of the Soviet Union as it existed before 1991, before he was born, with details no child should know from memory. Dmitry paused, staring at the map he'd created. "The borders are wrong now," he said quietly. "Everything changed, but I remember when they were right." Irina felt something cold settle in her chest. Her son had never shown particular interest in geography or history. They didn't have historical atlases in their home. The maps he was drawing included administrative divisions, industrial centers, and railway lines with a precision that seemed impossible for a child who spent most of his time playing football and video games. Over the following weeks, the drawings continued. Dmitry would come home from school, ignore his homework, and spend hours sketching maps from memory. Not just political boundaries, but topographical features, the locations of specific factories, the routes of major infrastructure projects. Irina began keeping the drawings in a folder, uncertain what to make of them. Her husband, Victor, suggested their son had an exceptional memory and must have seen these maps somewhere. But Dmitry insisted otherwise. "I remember these places," he would say. "I remember deciding where things should be built." The turning point came on a Saturday morning when Dmitry drew a detailed map of the Kremlin's interior layout as it appeared in the 1930s. He marked specific rooms, corridors, and offices with annotations about their purposes. "My office was here," he told his mother, pointing to a particular location. "This is where I worked late at night." The window faced east. "I could see the sunrise when I hadn't slept." Irina's hands trembled as she looked at the drawing. She made a decision that would change their lives. She contacted Dr. Alexei Petrov, a psychologist at Moscow State University who had published research on childhood memory phenomena. Dr. Petrov arrived at the Volkov apartment 3 weeks later, accompanied by Dr. Elena Sokolova, a historian specializing in Soviet administrative history. They brought no preconceptions, only careful methodology. Petrov began with standard psychological assessments, establishing baseline cognition and ruling out any conditions that might produce false memories or confabulation. Dmitry tested within normal ranges for everything, except spatial memory and historical knowledge, where his performance was extraordinary. The researchers then moved to verification. They showed Dmitry photographs of Soviet-era buildings, mixing genuine historical images with carefully constructed fakes. Dmitry identified the authentic photographs with perfect accuracy. When shown images of Soviet leaders and officials, he named them without hesitation, not just the famous ones, but mid-level administrators whose names appeared only in archived documents. He described their personalities, their relationships with each other, details about their families that matched historical records but weren't widely known. Dr. Sokolova brought maps of various Soviet cities from different time periods. She asked Dmitry to identify which version was correct for specific years. He answered correctly every time, even noting when buildings had been constructed or demolished. For Stalingrad before it was Volgograd, he drew the city's layout with such precision that Sokolova cross-referenced his drawing with archived city planning documents from the 1930s. The match was remarkable. The most unsettling session occurred when the researchers asked Dmitry about his claimed memories of being Joseph Stalin. Petrov approached this carefully, using open-ended questions that wouldn't suggest answers. "Tell me about your memories of leadership," he said. Dmitry's expression changed. He seemed to age somehow, his face settling into lines of weariness that didn't belong on a child. The responsibility was crushing, Dmitry said, his voice different, lower, more measured. Everyone wanted something. Everyone needed decisions. I couldn't trust anyone completely. Not really. He described the isolation of power, the constant calculations about loyalty and betrayal, the weight of knowing that every decision affected millions of lives. His words carried an authenticity that troubled both researchers. This wasn't the language of a 10-year-old mimicking what he'd heard. This was experiential knowledge, the vocabulary of someone who had genuinely felt these burdens. Dr. Sokolova asked about specific historical events, carefully avoiding leading questions. She mentioned only dates and asked what Dmitri remembered. For August 1939, he described negotiations with representatives from Germany, the tension in the room, his calculation about buying time. For June 1941, his face darkened. We weren't ready. I knew we weren't ready, but it came anyway. His description of the early days of Operation Barbarossa included details about military communications, the chaos of command structures, the desperate attempts to organize defense, details that matched historical records but weren't taught in standard history classes. The researchers documented everything meticulously. They recorded sessions, transcribed interviews, cross-referenced every verifiable claim against historical documents. Petrov maintained scientific skepticism throughout, searching for alternative explanations. Could Dmitri have been exposed to detailed historical information through family members? Irina and Viktor had no particular interest in Soviet history beyond what any Russian family might. Could he have accessed information online? The family's internet usage was monitored. Dmitri primarily watched football videos and played age-appropriate games. Could this be cryptomnesia, where forgotten memories resurface as if new? The specificity and coherence of Dmitri's knowledge made this unlikely. Dr. Sokolova arranged for Dmitri to visit the State Historical Museum in Moscow. She wanted to observe his reactions to artifacts from the Stalin era. Walking through the exhibits, Dmitri moved with strange familiarity. He paused before a photograph of Stalin's dacha, describing the interior layout with precision. "That chair by the window," he said, pointing. "I would sit there in the evenings." The cushion was worn on the left side. Museum staff later confirmed through archival photographs that the chair's cushion was indeed more worn on the left. In front of a display about the industrialization campaigns, Dmitri described the human cost with disturbing clarity. "We needed steel. We needed machines. People died. Many people." His voice was flat, matter-of-fact. This wasn't childish parroting of propaganda or simplified history. This was the voice of someone remembering difficult choices, carrying the weight of decisions that had profound human consequences. The researchers expanded their investigation. They brought in Dr. Vladimir Kozlov, a specialist in reincarnation studies who had documented similar cases worldwide. Kozlov was intrigued by the consistency of Dmitri's memories and their verifiability. Most claimed past life memories involved general statements or events that could be researched, Kozlov explained to the team. But Dmitri provides specifics that require intimate knowledge, the kind of details you'd only know from direct experience. Kozlov conducted a session where he asked Dmitri about personal details of Stalin's life, not public facts, but private experiences. Dmitri described chronic pain in his left arm from an old injury, the smell of his preferred tobacco, the taste of specific Georgian wines he favored, and his feelings about his children. When researchers checked these details against Stalin's personal correspondence and memoirs of close associates, the accuracy was striking. One particularly compelling moment came when Kozlov asked about Stalin's mother, Kedavin Jaladze. Dmitri's eyes softened. "She wanted me to be a priest," he said. "She never understood what I became. She was disappointed. I saw her one last time before she died. I couldn't be what she wanted." According to historical records, this reflected Stalin's complex relationship with his mother, who indeed had hoped he would enter religious service and expressed disappointment about his political path. The research team faced a methodological challenge. How do you scientifically investigate a claim that defies conventional understanding of consciousness and memory? Petrov advocated for rigorous documentation without premature conclusions. "We have a child with remarkable knowledge that lacks obvious sources," he wrote in his research notes. Whether this constitutes genuine memory of a previous life or represents some other phenomenon, perhaps an extraordinary form of historical empathy or information access we don't yet understand, requires careful consideration. As months passed, Dmitri's relationship with these memories became more complex. Sometimes he spoke about them as external, as if watching scenes from film. Other times, they seemed deeply personal, part of his identity. His parents struggled with the implications. Irina worried about her son's psychological well-being. He's carrying memories of terrible things, she told Dr. Petrov. How does a child process being someone responsible for so much suffering? This concern led to regular psychological monitoring. Petrov wanted to ensure Dmitri didn't internalize guilt for historical atrocities. We need to help him understand that even if these memories are real, they're not his moral responsibility, Petrov explained. He's Dmitri, a 10-year-old boy living in 2019, not Stalin making decisions in the 1930s. This distinction proved crucial for Dmitri's mental health. The case attracted attention from other researchers. Dr. Ian Stevenson's successors at the University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies requested documentation. Similar cases existed in their archives, children claiming memories of historical figures, but few with the level of verifiable detail that Dmitri provided. International researchers noted patterns. These memories typically emerge spontaneously in early childhood, contained verifiable information the child couldn't have normally accessed, and often faded as the child matured. By Dmitri's 11th birthday in 2020, the memories began to recede. They're becoming less clear, he told Dr. Petrov during a follow-up interview. I try to remember a dream after you wake up. You know you dreamed something important, but the details slip away. This pattern matched documentation from similar cases. The memories that seemed so vivid and immediate to young children often dimmed as they grew older, replaced by the experiences and identity of their current life. The research team compiled their findings into a comprehensive report. They documented hundreds of verifiable historical details Dmitri had provided, his consistent responses across multiple interviews, and the absence of any conventional explanation for his knowledge. They also acknowledged the limitations of their investigation. We cannot definitively prove these are memories from a previous life, Dr. Sokolova wrote in the report's conclusion. But we also cannot easily dismiss or explain away the phenomena we've documented. This case presents a serious challenge to conventional understanding of memory and consciousness. As months passed, Dmitri's relationship with these memories became more complex. Sometimes he spoke about them as external, as if watching scenes from a film. Other times, they seemed deeply personal, part of his identity. His parents struggled with the implications. Irina worried about her son's psychological well-being. He's carrying memories of terrible things, she told Dr. Petrov. How does a child process being someone responsible for so much suffering? This concern led to regular psychological monitoring. Petrov wanted to ensure Dmitri didn't internalize guilt for historical atrocities. We need to help him understand that even if these memories are real, they're not his moral responsibility, Petrov explained. He's Dmitri, a 10-year-old boy living in 2019, not Stalin making decisions in the 1930s. This distinction proved crucial for Dmitri's mental health. The case attracted attention from other researchers. Dr. Ian Stevenson's successors at the University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies requested documentation. Similar cases existed in their archives, children claiming memories of historical figures, but few with the level of verifiable detail that Dmitri provided. International researchers noted patterns. These memories typically emerge spontaneously in early childhood, contained verifiable information the child couldn't have normally accessed, and often faded as the child matured. By Dmitri's 11th birthday in 2020, the memories began to recede. They're becoming less clear, he told Dr. Petrov during a follow-up interview. Like try to remember a dream after you wake up. You know you dreamed something important, but the details slip away. This pattern matched documentation from similar cases. The memories that seemed so vivid and immediate to young children often dimmed as they grew older, replaced by the experiences and identity of their current life. The research team compiled their findings into a comprehensive report. They documented hundreds of verifiable historical details Dmitri had provided, his consistent responses across multiple interviews, and the absence of any conventional explanation for his knowledge. They also acknowledged the limitations of their investigation. We cannot definitively prove these are memories from a previous life, Dr. Sokolova wrote in the report's conclusion. But we also cannot easily dismiss or explain away the phenomena we've documented. This case presents a serious challenge to conventional understanding of memory and consciousness. For the Volkov family, life gradually returned to something resembling normalcy. Dmitri still drew maps occasionally, but with less urgency. He focused on school, on friends, on the ordinary concerns of adolescence. Yet something remained, a depth in his understanding of history, a particular gravity when discussing power and responsibility, and a peculiar empathy for the weight of difficult decisions. Irina kept the folder of maps and drawings, along with transcripts of research sessions. Sometimes she wondered what purpose these memories served, if they were real. Was Dmitri meant to learn something from them? Was consciousness trying to process historical trauma across time? Or was this simply a mystery beyond current human understanding, a glimpse into mechanisms of memory and identity that science hadn't yet mapped? Dr. Petrov continued following Dmitri's development. In quarterly check-ins, he monitored the boy's psychological integration of these experiences. The goal was ensuring that whether the memories represented genuine past life recall or some other phenomenon, Dmitri could build a healthy identity in his current life. By age 12, Dmitri had largely integrated the experiences. They were part of his history now, unusual and extraordinary, but not defining his present identity. The case raised profound questions for everyone involved. If consciousness can somehow retain memories across lives, what does this mean for our understanding of identity and personal responsibility? If these weren't truly past life memories, but something else, some form of extraordinary historical access or collective unconscious connection, what mechanisms might enable such experiences? The researchers found no definitive answers, only carefully documented observations of a phenomenon that challenged existing paradigms. In scientific terms, the case remained open. More research was needed, more cases documented, more rigorous investigation conducted. But for Dmitri and his family, a certain peace emerged. Whatever the source of these memories, they had been witnessed, documented, and taken seriously. Dmitri wasn't dismissed as imaginative or delusional. His experiences were treated with the respect they deserved, investigated with scientific rigor, and ultimately integrated into his life story. The maps Dmitri drew in that kitchen in Volgograd remain detailed, precise, inexplicable through conventional means. They stand as physical evidence of something remarkable, whether that something is genuine past life memory, extraordinary historical access, or a phenomenon beyond current scientific understanding. The question isn't whether to believe or dismiss such cases, but whether to investigate them with the seriousness and rigor they deserve. If you're fascinated by cases that challenge our understanding of consciousness, memory, and the nature of identity itself, subscribe to this channel. We investigate extraordinary claims with scientific rigor and open minds, documenting phenomena that push the boundaries of conventional understanding. More cases like Dmitri's await your exploration. Stories of individuals whose experiences suggest consciousness may be far stranger and more expansive than we imagine. Join us as we continue investigating these mysteries, always seeking evidence, always questioning assumptions, always remaining open to the possibility that reality contains dimensions we've barely begun to comprehend.